In a quiet American village long, long ago, back in the 1700s, there lived a friendly man named Thomas Harper. The village was peaceful. Wooden houses stood between green hills, children played in the dusty roads, and every morning the bright sun painted the village in warm golden light. Thomas was a man everyone liked. He was cheerful, funny, and loved telling stories. Almost every day, he sat under a big oak tree in the village square while children gathered around him. The villagers laughed at his jokes, and the children loved hearing his wild adventures, even though most of them were a little exaggerated. But there was one problem. Thomas was very lazy. While others worked in their fields or repaired their homes, Thomas spent most of his time chatting, laughing, and relaxing in the shade. And his wife, Martha, was not happy about it. One morning, she stood at the door of their small wooden house with her arms crossed. "Thomas Harper," she said sharply, "you spend all day telling stories while everyone else works. Go hunting. Do something useful." Thomas scratched his head nervously. "Well, Martha, I was just about to go," he said. So to avoid another lecture, Thomas quietly grabbed his old hunting gun and walked toward the forest. His loyal dog, Rusty, happily trotted beside him. Into the mountains. The forest was calm and beautiful. Sunlight filtered through tall trees, birds sang in the branches, and the wind whispered through the leaves. Thomas walked deeper and deeper into the woods until he reached a mountain trail. The view was breathtaking. Below him stretched a wide green valley and the distant village. After climbing for a while, Thomas felt tired. He sat on a large rock while Rusty rested beside him. Just as he was enjoying the cool mountain breeze, he heard a voice. "Thomas. Thomas Harper." Thomas jumped to his feet. "Who's there?" he called. From behind the trees appeared a strange old man, slowly carrying a heavy wooden barrel up the mountain path. The man wore unusual clothes and had a mysterious expression. He looked at Thomas and said quietly, "Good man, would you help me carry this barrel?" Thomas was a kind person, even if he was lazy, so he nodded. "Of course, sir." Together, they carried the barrel higher into the mountains until they reached a hidden clearing. And there, Thomas saw something very strange. Several mysterious old men stood in a circle playing bowling with large wooden balls. But something felt unusual. None of them spoke. They rolled the bowling balls slowly across the ground, and every time the ball struck the pins, a deep rumbling sound echoed like distant thunder. Thomas watched with wide eyes. What kind of game is this? He wondered. The strange drink. One of the mysterious men walked toward Thomas holding a wooden cup. He dipped the cup into the barrel and handed it to him. Thomas sniffed it. It smelled sweet and strange. "Well," he said, "after climbing this mountain, I suppose one drink won't hurt." He drank. The liquid tasted wonderful, but suddenly Thomas felt dizzy. His eyes grew heavy. The wind whispered softly through the trees. The mysterious men watched silently as Thomas slowly lay down on the soft grass, and before he knew it, he fell into a deep sleep. A sleep like no other. While Thomas slept, something magical happened. Time began to pass. The sun and moon raced across the sky again and again. Summer became autumn. Autumn became winter. Snow covered the mountains. Then spring returned with blooming flowers. Year after year passed. Leaves fell, snow melted, rain came and went. But Thomas continued sleeping peacefully, and his beard grew longer and longer and longer. The Awakening. One bright morning, Thomas suddenly woke up. He stretched his arms and yawned. "Well," he said lazily, "that was a nice nap." But when he stood up, something felt strange. His beard was very long, his hunting gun was rusty, and his dog Rusty was nowhere to be found. "Rusty!" he called. "Rusty!" The forest was silent. Confused and worried, Thomas began walking back down the mountain toward his village. But when he reached the village road, everything looked different. New houses stood where old ones used to be. The streets were wider, and the people wore unfamiliar clothing. Villagers stared at him. "Who is that strange old man?" they whispered. Thomas approached them nervously. "Excuse me," he asked, "do you know Thomas Harper?" The villagers looked puzzled. Suddenly, an old woman pointed at him with wide eyes. "Wait, that face!" The crowd began whispering. "Thomas Harper disappeared many years ago. Long ago." Just then, a young woman stepped forward slowly. Tears filled her eyes. "Father?" she said softly. "My daughter? But you were just a little girl this morning." The young woman smiled through her tears. "Father, you disappeared 20 years ago." Thomas's jaw dropped. 20 years? He had only slept for what felt like a single afternoon. The Storyteller. Soon, the entire village gathered around to hear Thomas's unbelievable story. That evening, Thomas sat on a wooden bench in the village square. Children gathered around him just like the old days. He told them everything. The mysterious men, the strange bowling game, and the magical drink. The children listened with wide eyes. When he finished, the village grew quiet.
He looks familiar.
Thomas smiled gently and said, "My young friends, I learned something very important. Time is the most precious thing we have. I spent my days being lazy and wasting time, and before I knew it, 20 years were gone." The children looked thoughtful.
The strangest
"So
thing
remember
happened.
this,"
What was it?
Thomas
A
continued.
light from the sky,
"Work
brighter
hard,
than the sun.
love your
Gather round,
family,
children, for a
and
wondrous
never
tale.
waste the
In a
time
land
you
far
are
away, a
given,
brave hero
because
began
once
his quest,
time
and
passes,
so it
you
began.
can never bring it back." The villagers nodded in agreement. The sun slowly set behind the mountains. Warm lights glowed from the village houses. And Thomas Harper, the
Gather
man
round,
who
children, for a
slept through
wondrous
time,
tale. In a
became
land far
the
away, a
village's
brave hero began
greatest
his quest,
storyteller.
and so it began.
From that day forward, he never wasted another moment.